My name's Deanna Flieschmann, and I'm the Executive Director for the Villa at the Lake in Conneaut. And my story is about the residents' trip down memory lane. Well, we decided to take a few of our residents in the Villa minivan, and they determined where the trip was going to be. We started with the Creek Road Covered Bridge, which is in southwest Conneaut, and some of their fondest memories were picnicking, swimming, fishing, and some of the men reminisced about all their fishing days and how much fun they had. And they also told the story of the steelhead trout. And I guess Conneaut Creek, news to me, is the steelhead trout capital of the world. So that's in our own backyard. Then we went on to the Middle Road Covered Bridge, which is beautiful in the fall because it has so many trees around it. And again, they talked about all the times that they spent with their families, that they were able to take their grandchildren to. And today they can still visit their favorite spot and enjoy the scenery they did back in the day. And then we went on to the Conneaut Historical Railroad Museum, and it wouldn't be a trip down memory lane unless you stopped there. And the Conneaut Railroad Museum is housed in a 1900 built building that was actually a passenger train station. And the last passenger train that stopped there was in 1962. So the residents reminisced about their trips to Erie on the train and Chicago, and always they would wave at the man in the red caboose. And again, you can still visit the Railroad Museum. One of its most beautiful historical trains is located there, and it is the Nickel Plate Railroad steam locomotive. And then after that, we went on to their most favorite place, and that's the Lakeview Park, and it overlooks Conneaut Harbor, the historical lighthouse, and the most beautiful sunsets, and that hasn't changed in 100 years. And all the D-Day reenactments, they have, such good memories of that, and a lot of our veterans really enjoy, viewing the reenactment, and that's usually in August in Conneaut. And then one of our residents really wanted to go back and visit his church that he grew up in, and Conneaut is notorious for beautiful historical churches, St. Mary's Parish being one of them, and it was actually established back in 1888, and Kenny's fond memory is of being an altar boy, and he said one of the privileges was ringing the bells. And actually, it was Father Murphy that purchased the first bell back in 1897, and it was $420, and he donated it to the church, and many of the parishioners had donated the stained glass windows that still stand in the church, and they're as beautiful as they were, I'm sure, over 100 years ago. And Kenny would talk about how you were so excited if you were the one chosen to ring the church bells. And he said the bells would chime, according to him, at 6 a.m., noon, and 6 p.m. daily. And he said that actually the citizens in the community would set their watches and their clocks to the church bells. So we had a nice visit there, and the residents stood in the area where the school once stood, and St. Mary's School was constructed in 1900, and in 1901 it opened its doors with 153 students, and many of our residents were students at St. Mary's, so that was like really visiting their childhood days and memories. Then on the way home, it was brought up in the van that Conneaut had a mini-series filmed back in 1977, and I believe the film debuted in 1978. So we had a little Hollywood brought to Conneaut. And Joni was telling us that she was an extra in the film, and it was filmed in Conneaut and Kingsville in various places, but one of the places was what is now the Conneaut Community Center for the Arts. And so Joni said she was an extra, and then then Opal spoke up and said she actually sang in the choir in the church, and she said, I'm not really sure if they used that piece, but I did it anyways. And then they brought it to my attention that Anne, who is one of our 100-year-old residents currently living at the villa, was the actual stand-in for Betty Davis. So we got them together when we got back to the villa, and they sat down in the library, and we brought out their scrapbooks and memorandums, and I think Joni had articles and pictures, and she was willing to share, and she actually imitated Betty Davis. So I think that was the most fun thing to watch. And they all had autographs. So it was just really nice to see the residents light up when they told their stories of all the special places in Conneaut. And the thing that's most important to them that they reminisced about was the simpler times. They said just walking on the beach, or picnicking, or taking a hike by the covered bridge, or going back to where they went to school and church. All of those things are what's important to them. So we enjoyed our trip down memory lane.